We will now open the Estacada City Council meeting. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have roll call, please, Cindy?
Counselor Blevins.
Here.
Counselor Dolezal.
Here.
Counselor McElroy.
Here.
Counselor Metcalf.
Here.
Counselor Prokop. Here. Counselor Tenbush.
Here.
Mayor Drinkwine.
Here. Thank you very much for that, Sadie. We are at the first citizen and community group comments. I have two in front of me here. I will start off with Jesse Kerr.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. As you know, my name is Jessie Kerr, and I'm the chair of the Estacada Area Arts Commission. And I'm a teacher in May, so I wrote it down. Tonight, you're reviewing the reapplication of Mike Anderley to the Arts Commission, and I'm just here tonight to speak on his behalf. So Mike has been on the Arts Commission for more than 2 years, and he's been an integral part of our work in our group. He's organized and supported many music, arts, and community events, not only with the Arts Commission, but in collaboration with other commissions. And in particular, he's been a wonderful conduit specifically to the musical community in our area. So as a commission, we have greatly appreciated his service and his willingness to support our efforts across the board. And his reapplication was unanimously approved at our meeting last week. We believe that Mike has and would continue to make a positive impact on our community through his involvement in the Arts Commission. I'm not sure if I'll be able to stay for the entirety of the vote, but I just wanted to put this nugget out there, and I hope you'll take it into consideration when you vote on his application this evening.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I have Eric Sell.
Hi. I would like to give some input tonight regarding the vote for the code amendment that's been shared and proposed as far as the odor, navigating that concern. There's been a lot of progress made towards addressing the odor and making movement in that way. And so I thank you for that. As we go forward with how to address it in the future, some of the things in that amendment are concerning to me. In the past, we've gone and tried to address this by calling out what kind of a HVAC system or what not that somebody had to have, calling up on that to solve the problem. This now amendment today, some of the concerns I have is that it requires a mixture of things that won't happen. It talks about in order to get a complaint, has to be 3 separate complaints before action happens. They have to be from 3 separate parties. So that means that I employ about 100 people that are many from the community. If any of them have concerns and it's traced back to them working for me, their vote doesn't count. And that has happened in the last weeks. Their complaint is discarded. And then it has to be from 3 separate locations. And those people have to be within 300 feet of the property line of where that occurs. Those 3 people from 3 separate parties in 3 separate locations within 300 feet have to all happen within 24 hours. And they all have to identify the right source by address. And they have to state the length of the time that they experienced the odor. It's just it's not reasonable. And so for me to say to my team that your opinion doesn't count and your opinion doesn't count, there's only one of us in the whole facility that counts. And that's not the way, that's not, I think, what the city is meant to do when they serve. On top of that, when we have a concern, if I can identify where it comes from, if I have to take out my measuring device and my map and try to figure out where 300 feet is within my property line, whether or not I can be one of the 3 people from 3 places and 3 different parties that qualifies within 24 hours, then I have to tell whether I'm actually 300 feet from where it stands and comes from. So if you look, please, as you guys look at these considerations, please think this through as far as what can really happen, because we've made progress. And I think the key part of it is the city code enforcement to continue to be around and watching that. I did have an opportunity to talk to them today, and some information relative to the relevant to our last meeting where people were asking if there's enough time or the code enforcement had enough time. They did assure me today that they log each complaint. They make multiple daily trips to the industrial complex for quite some time. They park down there and drive through the area. So last time it was said that maybe they're not working every day, different stuff like that. They assured me today that they are down there doing this daily. So I'm not sure how that weighs in, but that seemed relevant and different to what was shared last time. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I think we have looked at this and we're gonna make some tweaks here and there on that.
Yes, we can
uh,
definitely discuss.
The way that's
that.
written, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
okay.
definitely discuss it.
Absolutely.
Council business.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else got anything on that? No?
I don't remember it being like that at all. Because I remember that whole discussion about that's not reasonable in that area to have that many complaints. So
So we vetted this with our municipal judge. It's one person if it's a city employee or if it's a contract employee. So our code enforcement person, all it takes is them. In order to meet the burden, if the city isn't able to get down there within 24 hours, but we have 3 different complaints, and we can tweak the number of feet or what have you, and we can tweak how many businesses. We have flexibility there. It's just for the city to meet its evidentiary burden in municipal court so that these people can be fined. It can't just be one person and one property unless that one person is an agent of the city that's specifically dealing with this.
Okay.
What if the wind is blowing one direction?
Yeah, I mean, again, we can, we ideally, when we get a complaint, the code enforcement will be down there. They will be able to verify it themselves. The complainant and the code enforcement person would both testify in court, and that would be sufficient. These are scenarios where, and maybe it's 2 people or 3 people, 2 properties. I mean, we can tweak it. I just don't want us to be citing people and then our judge not believing there's enough evidence in order to get a conviction. And then the other thing too that we could do with this is, I think there are a lot of people in the industrial park that have been really bothered by this, but haven't been bothered to the extent where they've sent the email or picked up the phone. And so part of this is an education process for the neighbors, which is if they're bothered by it and their employees are bothered by it, to please complain, because our system's complaint driven. So we do have people driving around the city, looking for stuff and responding to stuff, but the priorities are where we get complaints. And so, yeah, so part of it is how do we meet our evidentiary burden? And again, we can say 500 feet or 800 feet or whatever. And we could do the number of businesses. What we want to avoid is like something that looks like a targeted approach of one business every day calling in the complainant, because it's just going to be harder for the city to meet the evidentiary burden if that's the fact scenario than if we have multiple calls from unrelated parties. But again, you guys have flexibility. We can narrow it substantially. And then if it's not holding up in court, we can, do it. This is just in talking about a reasonableness standard, getting an idea of the kind of evidence our municipal judge needs. And again, like if somebody calls it in, our code enforcement person goes down there, or public works or whomever, police
Deputies,
officer, the deputies, and they smell it at the property line, that one complaint and the testimony of that contractor or employee are going to be enough for us to meet our evidentiary burden. If we don't have one of those people down there that can testify, part of the other reason for the 3 would be that they're people that are going to call in a complaint and they're able to do that anonymously, but are not going to be willing to show up to court and testify for a variety of reasons. My experiences, there are always people that are reluctant to do that, whether it's fear of retaliation or whatever. So what we were trying to do is craft something that meets the evidentiary burden and that appears to be reasonable in nature. And ultimately, you guys, at least initially, are the judges of what's reasonable. And you can say, this isn't reasonable. How about 2 complaints, or not require different properties, or whatever it is. And we'll draft that. We're just trying to meet your core objectives.
Jonathan and that. I guess my question would be 2-part on this is, 1, do we have any information, how much of this type of situation gets litigated? Like, is it a pretty a common thing, like a reoccurring theme? I mean, we talk about worrying about litigation, which I respect and understand, but we talk about it with is this something that is pretty prevalent?
So this is totally different. So when I talk about litigation and risk, normally I'm talking about someone suing the city and us either defending our ordinance in its reasonableness in circuit court or at the Land Use Board of Appeals. What this is discussing is us finding someone and them having the right to contest it in municipal court here in Estacada in front of a municipal judge. So the conversation is, what sort of evidence would he need in order to render a verdict in that case? And there is virtually no litigation risk to us in doing this. It's just like, if we're going to bring it, we want to get a conviction. I mean, if you ask any prosecutor, what's your goal? They want a conviction. And so if we're not giving him enough evidence for him to render a verdict convicting them, then the whole exercise has been counterproductive, because we're not able to hold those businesses that are creating the odor issues accountable in that manner. So again, like we're kind of assuming that one of the complainants probably wouldn't want to come testify or wouldn't be able to take time off from work or whatever the reason. And ideally, it would be our code enforcement person is going to get down there as soon as there's a complaint and independently verify it, because that will be sufficient. But yeah, if that doesn't happen, then we're trying to set it up so we would still get the verdict that we want in municipal court.
Okay, so, and then this part 2 to that question would be on, if they were to,
This is coming up in council business, right?
yeah, we can just discuss it later.
Yeah.
I'm fine with when we actually are having the conversation.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. John, yeah.
Are we gonna have another conversation on this?
Yeah, it'll be coming up in council business. It's one of the subjects.
So the only thing I'll say is I'm looking at it from the other side. I mean, I totally get your position and needing the right data or information, but this is a problem that's been going on forever. And I would be much more interested in being able to have one person call in that particular instance, getting an official down there to check it out and doing it that way. And if it's not going right to court, contact number 1 on this date, number 2, number 3, number 4, and having that be the body of evidence instead of the multiple things. But I'll wait for more discussion.
All right, we'll bring it back up when it comes back around to council business. So we appreciate it and thank you, Eric, for your comment. Okay, moving forward, we are now
We
at,
actually have a person that signed up to speak under citizen and they're on.
yeah, I
the
got it right
website.
here, Arrow Sanitary.
Yes,
Is that what
yes,
we're
thank
waiting
you.
for? Yeah, I was getting there.
Okay. so-
We now have Arrow Sanitary, going to come up and kind of fill us in on what's going on.
Thank you for driving out here today to meet with us and fill us in and give an introduction.
I have to lower this. I'm not very tall. Thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good to see you all again. Talking to Melanie over the last couple of weeks, I thought I'd come out and give kind of a quick update on the Walker acquisition. First off, I should say with me tonight is Greg Moore. Greg worked real closely with me at at Arrow running the day-to-day through the Walker transition. So Greg's been a integral part of what I'm about to say. So, and that's all very positive. We've had a great experience with the transition. I do want to thank city staff and the community, as well as all of our employees that have made it happen. Overall, it's been very smooth. We don't have a lot to report on, which I think is a very good thing, and kind of shows a testament of our solid team that we have with the Arrow crew. So both drivers, Brad and Jerry, are still with us, and that's been a great positive transition, and bringing them on the team. They have great community relationships, which has been a huge positive for us in that transition to our services. So overall, very good. The transaction is officially closed at this point, so not a lot to report on. I would say that overall, given all the challenges that we all went through to get to this point, the outcome has been very positive. So unless you have any questions on the Walker stuff, I don't have much else to say on that.
Yeah, I think I'd like to cut in with just some happy praise. I think you guys need to be given credit for what it is you accomplished. You came on in a very short amount of time and took on a much larger, much more intense part of the job that you guys did in the city. And I talked with you personally on my street. This little update, I think your performance is outstanding. The way you took it on, your people that you have working for you are polite. They're always, spot on first thing in the morning, one after the other, like clockwork. They put my barrels in front of my house. I mean, these guys are top notch. So all I've got to say is, from what I understand, you're going to be leaving this jurisdiction, but before you go, you must know that you are very incredible. You pulled it off and you did a great job.
Thank
And
you.
we appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Yeah, that was my next statement, is I'm actually taking on a new position in the company in Clark County in Vancouver. So I'll be taking on our operations over there. I've worked with Arrow the last 8 years, and been a great experience. But I think the positive part about me going over the river is Greg Moore has been promoted to the district manager of Arrow. Greg's been in the industry a long time, been with our company on and off for a lot of years, and I think he's going to continue that strong community relationship that we have and the strong operation. So it's a good spot for me. Very bittersweet. I want to thank all of you. We've gone through a lot in the last 8 years, especially Melanie and Peter and I and the mayor. Learned a lot out here, and it's by far been one of the best municipal relationships and experiences I've had in 20 years of running garbage companies. So I thank you all for that, and kind of wanted to officially thank you and tell you that I'm moving on, but going forward, Greg's going to be the point of contact, and you're in really good hands with Greg Moore. So.
All right. Thank you. Peter.
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for all your work, not just through the transition, but your willingness to share data and help the city in the years leading up to that. And the three of us spent so much time on waste issues over the last 3 years. I've learned so much more than I ever thought I would learn, related to things like how much do bins cost and all of the different operational things. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to use that knowledge again, but it's just such a relief to have you guys in here doing the quality work that you do. And I have not gotten a single phone call or email related to waste since you guys took over, and that has allowed me to focus on other things in Estacada that are also of substantial community concern. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys. And welcome.
Yeah, good to meet you, Greg.
Right. That's all I have on citizen group comments. So we'll be moving on to the consent agenda. You've all had a chance to read over the very large consent agenda. Are there any questions?
Just want to pull that out for a roll call vote for the appointment.
Okay, not a problem. We will do that. Let's move that down into council business as the first thing on there, if that's okay. So that would leave just the agenda minutes. Do I have a motion for that?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, minus the
Minus-
Arts Commission.
Minus,
Moving
yeah,
that.
minus the item B.
Okay. All right, you've heard it, the motion. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Second.
Yeah, first and second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. We are now at department and committee reports. Do any of you have commission reports that you'd like to put forward? John, I'll start off with you.
Okay, this is the last Estacada Public Library meeting, and I took good notes this time. And they're just so busy. They are doing so much all the time. And they went to some de-escalation training. They were looking at getting some new self-check machines. I guess they've got like a 5-year obsolescence thing or something like that. They've just got so much going on. They are so busy down there. I really appreciate it. Their local author was going to do an event. We did talk about maybe getting a vendor at their Wade Creek events, maybe to like sell sodas or something like that. And then they're also in the process of writing the collection, the things, how do they pick what they put into the library and that sort of stuff, and they're updating those rules as well. So I guess that's it, but it was really, really enjoyable. There's so much that they do down there. It's really something.
Great, thank you for that. John?
Yeah, I went to the DEC meeting this month for Jerry, and there was a couple things brought up. First and foremost is Hannah Smith resigned from the committee. So I just want to say thank you for her long tenure with the committee and all of her help that she's done with graphics and social media posts and coordinating, helping people just understand what's happening in downtown. It's not lost on this council, the time commitment that is and the drain that is on your life. So we appreciate your service to this community. And I just wanted to personally reach out and say thank you on behalf of that committee. And then some of the questions that were brought up, they were addressed really well by staff, but it was just getting into like, why are we excluding certain vendors from the downtown Estate, like from being able to participate at like the upcoming wine event. Forgive me, it's not uncorked, excuse me. And it was just, they did a really good job at explaining how the code relates to like anything that's not specific to what their vendor or what they're signed up for. But I thought that maybe with the support of the council, we could do an education piece on how we definitely would inspire creativity there. Like maybe come up with a craft booth for a kid or something sponsored by or something. Those were options that were just discussed just so that we're not excluding local businesses and owners and other things like that from participating in city events and things. So just that was something that they talked about quite a bit. And then I volunteered in the interim. I'm going to help with graphics and stuff like that for that committee to kind of help them get some of the event stuff going and just kind of interim help take some of that burden off of anybody that might need it. So, and then they were talking about doing a local adjustment. But there'll be more to come on that. I don't want to speak out of turn on it until I have more information.
Okay, great, thank you.
Did I miss anything?
Well, other than the fact that Saturday, May 31st from 11 to 7, Estacada Uncorked, downtown Estacada. Everybody come out. It's going to be a blast.
Great. Heidi, you have anything? No. Mike?
I had doctor's appointments. I missed both of my meetings this week, so.
All right. We have nothing, and let's go to the city manager's report.
All right, thank you, everybody. Just a few slides here tonight. Can't believe we're in the middle of May already. First, I don't have slides for these, but I wanted to say Budget Committee's meeting tomorrow evening, starting at 5:30. So it's a public meeting. Anybody's invited to watch here in the room or on Zoom. And the Budget Committee will be receiving the budget message for both urban renewal and the city budget. And then this weekend, the Upper Clackamas Whitewater Festival is going on, and I'll be having a table up there for the city just to promote, talk to people about coming down and doing stuff in Estacada. So if you're up there, it's always fun to watch the races and come and see me at the table if you're there. And then next slide, I have this is kind of something that came up out of the blue, but we've been working on it for the past few months. And it turns out that the city and Estacada Fire have been recommended for disaster recovery funding through the CDBG-DR, which stands for disaster recovery, peer funding. Can't remember what peer stands for. Infrastructure, something.
Post-incident emergency relief.
That's probably what it is. Anyway, so we got on this committee. It's for everybody in Clackamas County. We've been meeting every couple weeks for the past 2-3 months, Elena and I, with other people from around the county. And so we have been recommended, along with the fire district, both of us, for an amount just under $800,000 for our projects. And the city of Canby also was recommended for $820,000 for their backup generator installations. So we all three entities still need to go through the application process. The city is very familiar with going through the CDBG process with environmental reviews and things like that because it's federal funding. But we're excited about that. Our project will be the intersection improvement at Rivermill and Eagle Creek Roads. And so we should be able to get that moving forward with engineering right away, and then hopefully building that early 2027, late 2026, early 2027, which will help. We won't be moving like to a 3-way stop and then a stoplight, and then finally we'll be able to do the roundabout. So, and then the fire district, their project was doing wildfire mitigation and fuels reduction. So they have several different elements there that they'll have to explain more about. But it was pretty cool to be able to be part of this and to be able to have this opportunity. So wanted to share that. And we got some news from John Lagarza this week on the Northwest Natural Pipeline feasibility study. I know the council was prioritizing that. Their proposed pipeline would connect Sandy through Clackamas County, coming down to 11 and onto the industrial park. So it hits the Eagle Creek industrial area also. The estimated cost range, which is a wide range, but it's just for this feasibility study, is $50,000 to $80,000. So John's suggestion is looking for partnerships with the county and the state, because it wouldn't just be a benefit to our industrial campus that, like I mentioned, the Eagle Creek area. You can go to the next slide. It has a map. It would benefit the Eagle Creek industrial area and then also state and regionally. And I don't know if Mayor, you wanted to add anything or.
Oh, yes. We've been working on this for a very, very, very long time. And I've got to tell you, this would be a major kudo for the Estacada area as far as our industrial. I think as having that infrastructure in play out there would change the game for our industrial. And I know, Eric, it would probably help you as well. So I can kind of say that this is something that we have all been working very hard on. I know, Jonathan, you brought this up many times, and I think this is the right path. I'm glad Lagarza is actually taking this to the level that it needs to go, where the county looks at this and we get some partnerships going and we start this conversation. Because I think it's instrumental in our future going forward with Estacada. So I hope you're all on board with this and are looking at this the same way that I am. And kudos to all of you and Lagarza for even bringing this to the table.
Yeah, it's like step 1A, part A, I think, of the whole entire long process. But
a long way to go.
The next step would be to proactively host a meeting in our city with leaders from Clackamas County, Business Oregon, Northwest Natural. And I know you had mentioned maybe some environmental agencies, because that always seems to be a big concern that there'd be a lot of pushback from that. But just to get everybody at the table talking about it, how to partner on this feasibility study initially, and then see where it goes from there. So,
Yeah. Great. That is wonderful news.
yeah. All right. And then my next slide is any questions. So I think Councilor Metcalf has a question.
Yeah, is there a way, and forgive me, I'm just thinking outside the box a little bit here, but is there a way, like in that meeting, one, could we invite business leaders, like in business owners and things like that from the community as well, so that we could get a draft of support from them kind of visually in the room as this conversation's being had, so that they could weigh in person, from a employer and a stakeholder standpoint, especially. I think that would bring an extreme amount of value. And also, I mean, they are business leaders and owners for a reason, and we have some incredible ones in this community. Would it hurt to not only invite them, but lean on them? Because what is the rules here on private equity? Maybe they have lines and relationships with people that, because of what this entails, it's of interest to them as well to be involved in their community and to make it happen at all costs, right? So rather than just us taking it on and facing delays, I think, is there an opportunity here that we could open this up to partner with businesses in the community to ensure that this happens in a timely manner, and also to build relations towards an interactive and healthy relationship going forward, as maybe we can partner on lots of stuff coming down the pipeline. We just don't know federally what's coming for small business grants and other things like that as well. So I think that this could be a great opportunity to look at establishing professional relationships with the leaders amongst the community.
Great suggestion. I'm not sure exactly how that process goes, but I'll run that past John, and we'll put that together. But that's an excellent idea. So thank you for that.
Any other comments? Well, okay, thank you.
All right, thank
Peter,
you.
do you have anything you want to add in?
No, I'm continuing to have some conversations around a market rate hotel and getting you guys the kind of a recommendation as far as a consultant that can put together that package. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of turnover at the county's tourism offices, so that'll be part of the conversation going forward. We just need to have a couple of chips fall into place first.
All right. Well, Peter, if you need any help putting on the heat, we can do that. We can run down there. and make some calls.
You might be getting that phone call.
All right. All right. Going forward, we're at council business now. The first thing we're going to discuss on council business, it's the Arts Commission appointment that we moved down.
Yeah.
So I'll let you speak to that first off.
Well, I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to, in a roll call vote, to either show their support or lack of support for Michael Anderle. I personally don't believe that he belongs on a city commission. His interactions online with members of the community and undermining the council as of last week, just don't think displays the type of person that we want on a city committee. And I don't want to be responsible for supporting someone like that when the comments come later. It's going to come. It's never stopped since we've addressed it over and over again over the last couple of years. It never stopped. It's not going to stop. So I don't want to be part of putting someone like that on a commission.
Okay, Jerry.
So the city of Estacada, the Arts Commission, has for years has lacked someone involved in the music side of arts in Estacada. Michael Anderle fills a need, fills a definitive need that, for the musical side of arts in Estacada. And he's done an amazing job getting, at every event with live music. He's pretty much involved with everything that involves live music and at city events. And he does an amazing job on the Arts Commission, being the liaison for as long as I have been. He always brings forth, a positive attitude, always has great ideas, regardless of whether it's his, his forte or not, but he's always got great ideas and a positive attitude. And he puts in the work, he puts in the effort when it comes to the Arts Commission and the events that they put on, and working with other commissions. He puts in the effort, he puts in the work. So I would be voting for in support of Michael Anderle, just because knowing the amount of dedication he has to the arts in the city of Estacada, the arts community in the city of Estacada.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm not overly familiar with him. What is the issue that we're having with him?
Oh, it's just negative interactions with members of the community, comments like last week, going on the city council posting for an empty position, undermining the city council, saying things like, well, why don't we just ask McElroy? That's how it works, right? Just making it look like there's no integrity in voting for someone to replace Heidi. Stuff like that's just going to continue. I mean, I can go on and on, making a mockery of people's religions. I I mean, it just,
We just put a city
Yeah.
councilor on, we just
Yeah.
voted for a city councilor that,
This is
Uh,
not a debate, people.
he asked me the question and I'm just saying that's
Okay.
why I don't support him. You guys vote however you want. I just wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to vote no for him. That's all.
just remember that, the first rule on, conducting city council meetings is leave your personal bias at the door.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, but I'll also remind you that we have professional obligations to adhere to as well, and our image is everything. And I would say that not only did we exercise forgiveness once, but this has been a reoccurring thing. We've asked it to stop, and it didn't stop. You might not have been subject to personal attacks online, but we were. And although we may play coy, we're not foolish in who's behind this. We're not chickens. We have morals, we have values. Community spoke their vision for the people that are involved in this community and that lead it. And I don't personally believe that he fits what the community stands for. So my vote will be no.
Okay, John?
You know, I have no personal interaction with the candidate, but I've certainly heard of others. But my view on this particular thing is that the committee chose him. They chose him unanimously. Felt strongly enough to have someone come down to advocate for him, and I'm okay with that. So I don't know what the discipline, if there even is such a thing as a disciplinary mode or process if someone gets out of hand online or whatever, but just for that committee, the fact that they chose him and chose him unanimously, I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. That's all the comments. Heidi, you?
I will be voting in favor of Mike. If he gets voted out, I know he's gonna volunteer with the city anyway. And I just wanted to throw my support in for Mike.
Okay. That said, we will go to a roll call vote on this then.
we need a motion first.
Yeah, I'll need a motion on the floor.
I move to approve the appointment of Mike Anderly to the Arts Commission.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second,
First and second. We will now go to a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Blevins,
It sounds like he's acting kind of childish outside, but I vote yes.
Counselor Dolzall,
Yes.
Counselor McElroy,
No.
Counselor Metcalf,
No.
Counselor Prokop,
yes.
Counselor Tenbush,
Yes.
Mayor Drinkwine.
No.
Motion passes.
All right. We are now at ordinance 2025-005, an ordinance amending Title 5, Business Licenses and Regulations of the Estacada Municipal Code. Any discussion on this?
Go ahead.
Can I just clarify a couple of things? So there's three code revisions being presented. They're being to provide improved clarity and management for business licensing, merchandise being sold on sidewalks, and odor management. And where I was supposed to put a recommended language for a motion, I said, oh, we'll just do that at the end. And then I got to the end and I didn't put any recommended language for a motion. So your options, we can talk about these one by one. I kind of just did one staff report for the whole thing, but if you want to look at number 5 first, and then so number 5 is Title 5, and then we'll go through the other two. You can vote on them individually, and that way it's not a package. You can kind of pick and choose, and I thought it'd be easier to handle the modifications if we want to make modifications. So, so the first one to look at is ordinance 2025-005, business licensing. And I think if you click on that, it'll take you right down to the changes that were being made. And is there any questions or other clarifications, ideas?
Just want to making sure, because reading through it, I was thinking, I love it when the Scouts set up a booth somewhere or Girl Scouts or whatever, because if I got money in my pocket, I'm a sucker and I'll get something. And the way this was, I read it, it was like they would need a business license in order to do that. And it didn't seem like that would be, appropriate or what the right word is, because it's also, I guess you need to get a new license every year. And it wasn't exactly clear.
So that would be more of a fundraising type of a program versus they're not running a business, like maybe the Moose Lodge uptown, like that's a nonprofit, I believe, but they're doing business and they're making sales on an ongoing basis. And so this, after we talked, I think, and I looked into that, and this wouldn't apply to that. If there are nonprofits that are operating in town, like, trying to think of it, like the Yellow House. That's a nonprofit organization. They should get a business license, but they're exempt from the fee. And that just is how the process works. But for clubs like that, that are maybe doing a fundraiser here or there, the Safe Act Committee at the high school or the boosters, they typically don't get a business license. So it wouldn't apply to them.
Yeah, typically the scouts, that type of thing is done on private property. And what this is interacting to is on public property, not on private property. Because typically when the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, when they do their fundraisers, that's typically on private property, like in front of Harvest Market, or when the high school does their fundraisers, it's typically on their property. So what this is addressing is just public property, that.
For the obstructing the sidewalks thing. Yes, that's all, that's like,
But the business license stuff,
they're on private property. Typically businesses are private property. But they could have a guest.
but like
there,
the booths,
fundraiser.
the,
Yes.
the
Girl
booths
Scout
and stuff are
cookies,
typically
tables.
not,
Yeah, they were that would be more fundraising, that we wouldn't require a business license for that. Or lemonade stand. They're typically little kids in their front yard. They're not, they might consider themselves as to be running a business, but they're not actually running a business. And so those kind of things don't typically fall under this, unless Peter wants me to be more.
I mean, we
Fair.
can tweak it, to clarify that the Scouts and the Girl Scouts are both not-for-profit corporations.
There's quite a few other things that they do fundraisers in town too, and or a garage sale. We don't require a business license for a garage sale, so.
What about a teenager pushing a lawnmower around?
I don't think we would.
No, I don't think that falls.
I mean, again, like these are, it's kind of an enforcement thing.
Mhm.
We're not gonna know necessarily about a lemonade stand in someone's front yard on a, Saturday in August. And if a neighbor called that in, I mean, that would be kind of unbelievable. But what we're trying to get at, is we found that a lot of people don't get business licenses, and that's including subcontractors. And then folks that are not, it's not a one-time lemonade stand, it's they're selling fruit in our public right of ways, obstructing a sidewalk. And that creates ADA issues, frankly. And we didn't have a great mechanism for handling that. And so we think that making sure that, that that kind of outfit has a business license, that they're not obstructing the sidewalks. It just gives us a lot more enforcement tools. So they're the two prongs. There's the one public right of way, which again, like the lemonade stand, or
And that's
the Girl Scouts
right.
are almost always in front of the grocery store. They're there with the permission of the store. They're selling what the store sells, which is a food product. So that's not gonna, I think that there's enough there that they aren't creating this. It's not creating the sort of thing that we're trying to enforce. We can clean up the language though a little bit, and if you guys want, and if you think there's too much ambiguity. we can bring it
Okay,
back.
Elena?
Yeah,
Then-
I would just, the definitions in this chapter, a business is profession, trade, occupation, shops of all and every kind carried on for profit or livelihood. And I think we can all agree that lemonade stands and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are not either for profit or livelihood.
I don't know, Girl Scout cookies could be. No.
And I was just gonna suggest, like, if a kid is mowing lawns for neighbors in the summertime, I wouldn't consider that a business. But if they're getting out of high school now and they're gonna get a trailer and they're gonna have their little pickup truck pulling their trailer around with their lawn equipment and they're like on a weekly basis maintaining people, then I think that crosses over, okay, now you're a business. You're moving into the more
Livelihood.
professional livelihood type of work. Even if it's a side business, it's a business versus a kid that's picking up a few lawns on a Saturday morning. And so there is maybe some leeway here. But I think if we try to call out all the exceptions, then it's gonna get cluttered. And so if you have issues with how we're enforcing it, you can always redirect as the city interprets the code. But those kind of situations I don't see as being an issue. We do want to make sure people who are running a business do have a business license, and that so one of the things is if you're going to be leasing or buying and starting to set up your business in a commercial or industrial location, you need to apply for your business license at the same time you apply for water service. Because sometimes what happens is they'll get their water set up. Yeah, I'm going to be starting this, but it'll be a couple months. I got to get ready. Then next thing you know, we get a business license application. My grand opening is on Saturday. We're like, this isn't going to be processed for a week and a half, 2 weeks. If everything goes well, we can get out as quick as we can. But so we want to make sure that we're able to review if there's parking that needs to get reviewed or zoning that needs to get reviewed. Those are pretty much the things that we check on, and then we'll get that issued right away. But if we can get them applying for their business license at the same time as they apply for their water, it'll go a lot smoother.
Okay, John.
I have no intent to go too far down the rabbit hole here, but who ultimately has the discretion in terms of, like with the business, the definition, it's for profit or livelihood. And so if the kid's going out to sell cookies or whatever, they're making a profit. So it just depends on who's making the definition. I certainly don't want this to be 900 pages, but in like solicitor, same thing, going door to door. I've bought these frozen desserts from some dance team and all kinds of stuff. So who ultimately has that discretion with the city?
That would probably be me, and how I decide to interpret this and direct my staff to enforce it. And then if the council doesn't like how I'm running that operation, then I would take your feedback, definitely.
I think
yeah.
what might help with this is after you've written this and you've changed the wording to accommodate every aspect that might happen, maybe giving us an email on how that looks before we put it into play permanently, just so we have some input, because we don't know what you're going to come up with when it gets down.
Like for
before
the
you-
business license
Yeah.
or?
Yeah, well, the whole thing under that ordinance,
Oh,
when you make a change, if we can get,
Oh.
some information prior to it becoming,
yeah, that's kind of what this is for. And so if I did, okay, our brains were tired last week, I will tell you, trying to read through all this and come up with the best possible way to make it happen. And if you have anything to say, please weigh in. But so this would be our first presentation to you. Sometimes we get it right and you approve it just as it is. Other times you want us to take it back and try it again, and we can definitely do that. But this is probably in this setting is probably the best way for you to give us feedback, give me
So
feedback.
it sounds like you want to carve out for fundraisers. So whether that fundraiser is a car wash or whether it's Girl Scout cookies or whether it's the dance team selling whatever, then they're not doing it for their profit. They're raising money for a team or a club or so why don't
Or
we?
the car show, maybe they collect money for entries, but it's for a nonprofit usually, right? I mean, I don't know.
When we get down below, if you read down, it's page is 27, 5.04.090, business license exemptions. And that does say nonprofit, charitable, religious, educational organizations are exempt. So, I mean, it's already, when you get a little further down, it says that they are exempt from this portion of the ordinance. And I don't know if you wanted to update that a little more, if there's other things that you want to include, but like the Girl Scouts, the football team doing their fundraisers, that would all be included in those exemptions listed right there.
So just on there's one line, nonprofit service organization shall not be subject to occupational business license fee, provided their statement of nonprofit is on file with the city.
They usually include that in their application.
Again, going back to the scouts and stuff.
I know. So there are nonprofits that they operate out of a location ongoing. They should turn in submit a business license. They'll give us their statement of a nonprofit, but they don't have to pay a fee. Like even the farmer's market is a nonprofit. They don't have to pay a fee, but they need to submit a business license. This is where I was looking for, where it said something. I couldn't find this today. 090, right? It was 090. Where they are exempt. So who is exempt? Persons who we're not allowed to give a license to. And then the non-profitable, charitable, religious, educational organizations. So those would be more your fundraiser type places, but not operating out of a location. So I don't know about the boosters. They typically operate out of the high school, but I mean, we're kind of like getting into the weeds here. So
Does that mean that they're exempt from having to file for a business license? That's the way it sounds like it reads, but
That's the
I
way
thought
it
you were
reads.
saying that they have to and they just don't pay for
they just don't
anything.
pay for it. That's how it plays out in.
But
in
it's
our
is that the
office.
way the
But
code is written?
Is that what it says?
The
That's
way,
pretty much-
the way it's reading is that they're exempt from the license requirement.
So they're
from-
not required to get one.
So maybe we should say there, nonprofit, charitable, religious, educational organizations, which have received a tax exempt certificate from the Internal Revenue Service and do not operate out of a, how would you say that?
Brick and mortar
Out of a-
location.
Yeah, out of a brick and mortar location.
Why would it?
So-
What I was trying to get to was that if the code says that they're not required to get a business license and they're a 501c3, then they're just not required to get a business license.
Let's look at it like an example, like if we had an Odd Fellows Hall here.
Yeah.
which
We want
do.
them to get a business license because they're doing things that we want to make sure cover health and safety. So they might have, they might have alcohol license to serve alcohol. So we need to have their business license to make sure that they have all their licenses, that the zoning is required, that it gets sent to the fire district for fire inspections because they have a physical location where they're carrying out business activities, even though they're technically a nonprofit.
So maybe it would help to ask some clarifying questions, and it's pretty obvious to me we're gonna need to bring this back.
Mhm.
So using the farmer's market as an example, we've had the farmer's market get a business license, but have not charged them the fee. I don't know whether that's something you would want us to charge in the future. And then the question comes, all the organizations that are under that umbrella. So all the people that go to the farmer's market and sell products at the farmer's market, do you want them to have to get a business license as well?
Because under the current.
Okay,
code, they don't
so
have to.
so if we had the farmer's market get a business license and we had them pay the fee, then we could say that the organizations that are within that farmer's market are covered. Just like if the grocery store gets a business license, then Nabisco doesn't have to get a business license, even though that store is selling Nabisco products.
And that's assuming that the farmers markets ran by a for-profit business. Is that
And
what
it's
you're?
actually a nonprofit, so it would,
They wouldn't
they
pay.
get the license, but they don't pay the fee.
Right,
Yeah.
but the people selling there are not nonprofits.
Right, I know.
So I think that, legally speaking, we could say that they're under the umbrella, but if you have for profits, like the example, the University of Oregon bookstore is a co-op and tax exempt when they're selling books and supplies. As soon as they're selling athletic gear, they're taxed on that. So it's bifurcated. So in the majority, well, it might not even be the majority of their sales anymore. The majority of their historic sales, they don't pay any taxes on it. They have to separately account for all their apparel and they have to pay taxes on that. So we could say with the farmer's market that the farmer's market needs to pay the tax, needs to pay the license so that the for-profit entities that are under its umbrella we don't have to, because that could cause people not to participate, and we want participation. So that's a potential carve out that we could do. I think that we have the other charitable language. If it is a fundraiser for a school or something like that, do you guys want us to just exempt them from the whole process? So we would tell the school, if you have teams, whether they're soliciting money or selling products or doing a car wash, whatever it is, we're exempting them from the business license, and we're not doing any enforcement because we've done a carve out for that. If there are people selling food or foodstuffs that are not under the umbrella of the farmer's market and are doing it separately in the public right of way, you'd want us to require them to have a business license, right? Okay.
And if they can't get a business license, then,
And then
the next
subcontractors,
ordinance.
so like people pouring concrete on a job, you would want them to have a business license, even if they're under a general. So if someone's doing work for Hoffman, like Hoffman subs somebody out, that sub would need to get a business license.
Like if they're coming in to pour a slab for one day, you know,
No,
is that what you're saying? You
I'm
want me-
saying if they're pouring all the slabs in a subdivision.
I can appreciate that.
So like I pay a business license to the city of Estacada, even though I don't have an office here, because I show up here and give you guys legal advice. And it's not nonprofit. So that would be my, if there's someone that's just doing a one-off intermittent thing, they're not even going to know to come and get one of these. But if there's people that are regularly doing work, then, you know, whether or not they have a physical location here, then I think the idea is we would want them to get the business license.
If the language clarified that,
Yeah.
that they're doing regular business and define regular business.
Right.
And just,
And that's not covered under the umbrella of like Clackamas County. They get theirs from Clackamas County and then they can work throughout. You want
Yeah.
specific?
Sure.
So
Doing business
on
there.
that same line, I mean, if you had a roofing company that, say they have 3 customers out here in Estacada and they scheduled them back to back to back, would we require that roofing company, to get a business license if, you know, I mean, they're just coming out for,
They might get away with it, but they should.
I
get
mean,
a
if they're
business
doing like $45,000 in roofing, then paying $110 business license contract doesn't seem like that big of a burden.
this is just for clarification.
license. Yeah.
I just think the enforcement would be real messy with that.
It
That
is.
you're gonna
yeah.
get, we don't have the ability, I think, to enforce that equally against everybody. I think that's kind of a tough one to, who's gonna determine who we're gonna enforce that on?
Well,
Be able to do it fairly.
I know of a person in my family who used to do contractor work and somebody from the city this is back in the day and I didn't know this stuff. And somebody from the city stopped and said, hey, you need a business license to do work. And I'm like, I don't need a business license. We're just fixing this guy's house. And I didn't know that. That was a learning experience, but they just stopped and educated us and I had to come down and get a business license to do work in the city. And so, but some people, you know, they're going to come in and they're going to get in and out real fast and, you know, we probably aren't going to catch them. So it is, if you don't want us to try, then we shouldn't require subs under somebody. If there's somebody working with.
Yeah, I don't
but
think you
I
can
don't know.
separate those guys.
I don't know,
You
it's
know,
kinda-
we all are set by the same rules. I am a sign maker and I pay a fee
Yes.
to work in the city of Estacada, and everyone, no matter what your circumstance, no matter what you do, should have that same
Mhm. And we'll
demand
get-
on them. I
yeah,
mean, it's just
we'll
part
get
of
to
it.
them.
It's
We'll-
part of it, yeah. So I think subcontractors, contractors, whoever's out there, I don't care who they are, they need to apply for a city business license. That's what it's there for. That, everybody's by the same standard. We can't separate this person and say, well, if they're in here, you know, putting 3 roofs up, we're not going to do it. But, you know, That's ridiculous.
They're coming in to do business, they get
Yeah.
a business license. And so, and a lot of, most, if you've done business for a while, you know that, but like I said, we didn't know. And so we learned, and then you just get your business license. When you go, whatever town you're working in, you get a business
yep.
license and.
That's just the way it is. I mean, every town I go to do a sign, they make me get a business license. Whether I'm doing one sign, 3 signs, 4 signs, it doesn't matter. I have to buy a business license
Mhm.
and it costs me every time. And that's just part of the cost I know I'm going to entail.
It's
But
pretty standard, yeah. So subcontractors doing regular business, and we could define that a little bit better. We'll exempt fundraisers. And then nonprofits without a physical location, like the Scouts or the Art Back, or I don't know what all they wouldn't necessarily need a business license, but if they do have a location they're doing business, but it's nonprofit, then they don't need to pay the fee. They do the license, but they don't pay the fee. That's what the intention is. And so we just need to make sure, we'll have multiple people read through this to make sure that that's what we're calling out, if that's
So,
what I'm hearing.
I want to clarify so I can make sure I get this right. So right now, under 5.04.090, it says business license exemptions, and you want to add in there fundraisers under 2. So nonprofit, charitable, religious, or educational organizations, and we can add in fundraisers there. Is that the consensus there?
Well, they might not have a tax exempt.
Guess what
Yeah.
organization that's not a nonprofit that would be doing a fundraiser?
I can't,
yeah, I don't know if you could separate that.
no, I think if they're a nonprofit.
What I'm trying to avoid is someone saying, I'm doing a fundraiser on the
Yep.
corner of a sidewalk.
You know, I
Well,
guess.
I'm not doing business. I'm
like-
raising funds for
Like a
a needy family
GoFundMe.
and
Yeah.
wherever.
Yeah.
That, I don't like opening the door to that. I just
Okay.
Stick with the
Stick with this.
the
Stick-
nonprofit.
stick
And
with
we-
the
And we know
nonprofit.
the spirit of the enforcement, what it's gonna be,
Uh-huh.
so.
So then add in, which have a physical location or which do not have a physical location, and that would make them exempt from having to get a license because they don't have.
We'll tweak this language.
Okay,
And if we skip down to attachment 3, 5C, that's where we talk about people who might be just doing business on a sidewalk and blocking the sidewalk. Previously, we say you can't do that, but there's really no, I mean, this applies to basketball hoops. It's like, there's no law against having your basketball hoop out there, but it cannot block the sidewalk. And so, we try to give notice, say, hey, you need to not be on the sidewalk, you can't be on the sidewalk. And if there's not an immediate removal of that stuff, then we'll confiscate it, bring it to City Hall. If somebody wants to come and get it from us, they can come and get it. So that's how we're trying to approach that particular situation, especially, and I saw that, I think there was some flowers getting sold over the weekend, but they were not on the sidewalk. They were back on private property. And that was a fundraiser type of a situation, at least it was previously. Previously, they were on the sidewalk. This time they had learned, do not be on the sidewalk, do not block the sidewalk. And so the folks that do come and want to sit on the sidewalk and block that, we would enforce that by saying, you need to go, otherwise we're gonna have to remove your items. Or remove the basketball hoop, or whatever it is, and people generally comply. But this will give us a little more teeth. So that's,
ordinance 9,
yes,
Title 9. I mean,
ordinance 25007, section 9 in the code, the third one. So I think we know, so if that one is okay, you could approve that one, and I think we know what we need to do to the first one with the business licenses. Any final comments on that, or do you want to move on to odor?
No, let's move on to odor and B, because that's going to be a rewrite on A, right?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
yes, we will rewrite that and bring it back.
And that would just be a consensus right now that, move it forward and
Oh, yeah. Is everybody, I mean, I think we've heard from everybody. Any other comments on that?
no, I don't think so.
Consensus. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody, for weighing in on that. Okay, and
Okay.
then we've got Title 8.
Yeah, ordinance 2025-006, an ordinance amending Title 8, Health and Safety of the Estacada Municipal Code. Now, this is the area where we would have
gets
those discussions if there
page
are any
30.
more.
It's on page 30.
Mike?
So I just want to make comments, like the way this is currently laid out, and I'm just pulling off of Google Earth and measuring from Eric Sales Business
Mhm.
Northwest Technology.
Mhm.
He would never be able to complain about a business. You got one building that's 396 feet away from them that's blowing it at them. You got another one that's 427 feet that's blowing it at them. And no grow facilities within complaint range for him, but he's getting smacked in the face with it all. I granted there was an illegal operation that was doing it for a period of time, but the problem that he's been experiencing for all this time, this specifically silences his voice and the voice of his employees. So the 300 feet thing's out the door. For me, it's a non-starter. I would increase it. I don't know why there has to be a foot restriction on odor. If it's carrying 1,000 feet and it's that strong to hit him at his door, it's 1,000 feet away and he can identify the source of it, then that complaint's valid. If there's 3 parties at his work that are willing to sign an affidavit and show up in court and testify against a party for them to catch a fine, I think those 3 parties' voices count. I don't think that it needs to be 3 parties from 3 different addresses. And if it becomes an issue that they're repeatedly going, we think that they're abusing the system and that they're going to court and the cases keep getting dropped, then we can deal with it later. But I would like to see it just go forward with, if I'm fine with the 3 parties, as long as those 3 parties can be 3 members of a 100-person team at a facility that are having to deal with the odors and they're willing to go to court for it. I think they should have the opportunity to make that argument in front of a judge. And hopefully the case is that they make a complaint, they can identify where the sentence comes from, code enforcement comes, and then they're not even required that to be put under that burden. I don't think that it should be our citizens that are dealing with it. We should be, and we are, I understand that code enforcement's proactively patrolling that area. And I've noticed a considerable, it's gotten considerably better since that illegal place. We still get intermittent, but it's nowhere near what it was a couple weeks ago before that facility got shut down. But my proposal would be eliminate the distance restriction and the need for, like, I'm just trying to think of, like, we have within, just to beat that drum again, within 300 feet of us, we're surrounded by 3 buildings at our facility that are marijuana grows. Well, if we have 3 parties within 300 feet, there's not 3 parties within 300 feet of those grow facilities. So it's just kind of an unrealistic burden. If people are comfortable with just removing the distance and the 3 parties, I think that no matter who those 3 voices are, if they're having to deal with it and they're willing to sign an affidavit, is there a reason that those 3 parties from one organization wouldn't meet the standard, Peter?
No, we were, I think there was a little bit of concern related to like targeting. And so the idea was, if this is bothering multiple people, ideally, if it was bothering your business and his business and an employee from both complained, I mean, but I think that as long as we can get code enforcement or Public Works or someone else out there in order to verify, then that would work. And yeah, we can eliminate the distance. And would you want like 2 complainants or we could do 3 from one facility, I guess?
I just 3, period, 3 of anybody. Yeah, it doesn't have to be from a that is designated to a particular property or
Okay.
facility.
So
If you'd like 3 people, if that's what the judge would like for the burden of proof is 3. I just can't imagine that you'd say, I need 3 people from 3 different buildings complaining within.
I think
yeah.
it's like, if I, if I was like recruiting 2 people and be like, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
complain. I'm going to complain this afternoon at 1. Would you mind throwing one in at 1:30? And, would you mind throwing one in at 2? Like, that's the conversation that that could happen, like calling other businesses and saying, I mean, it's just like, I think that the judge was hoping to show, more, like, I'll call it geographic harm, whether geographic harm's really like the right term or not, but just like a harm, localized harm.
Yeah.
That it's kind of bothering people. And again, I had originally thought, at the property line, because that's where she's going to be, or whoever code enforcement is, that's where they're going to be measuring it from. Can they smell it or not? So I agree with you that we should, it was a good idea to remove that, but the feet. And then whatever you guys want to do on the complaints, the number and whether or not they're from the same facility.
So long as it's not anonymous is what you're saying, so that it can be proven.
Well, yeah, I think the requirement would be those three people would be willing to sign an affidavit swearing to what they are attesting. So that, and then they would have to be willing to show up in court. And that only comes into play, my understanding is if there's a contractor or an employee of the city cannot go down there. If they go down and validate and it's standing for more than 15 minutes, that smell standing for more than 15 minutes at the property line, then those statements aren't needed. They what triggered the event. It's just if we can't get a member, and I have a hard time believing that we can't find a rotating, if the code enforcement here, we can maybe find a rotating person in Public Works that might be available to step out there for a phone call like that. And I think that, and I understand your concern, Peter, but I think that would play itself out very quickly as far as like people being abusive of that situation. And I'm more than willing to revisit that and address that if that becomes an issue, but I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Right. And I mean, my concern is just how can we give ourselves the best chance of getting convictions, because we want, I think that to the point that you made, other businesses are seeing enforcement actions happening now, and that's causing them to take additional steps as far as whether it's exhausting at night or however they're managing the odor, they're managing it. And I think if they see now tickets, then that's going to further encourage mitigation efforts. And that's our goal. Our goal isn't to fine people. It's to, there's the carrot and the stick. That said, if we're going to use the stick, we have to make sure this stick's going to work. And so meeting that evidentiary burden, but I think if we have three people and part of their affidavit is they didn't confer with the other complainants, then that meets that objective as well.
Okay, Jerry, did you?
Well, I was just gonna say, you know, having, you know, maybe in a higher density area, it would make sense to have, you know, three separate businesses, but in a low density area, you know, like that where, you know, you might not have a neighbor for 500 feet. You might not have another business, you know, that, and those other businesses might be, you know, they're blowing it in the direct path of one business and there's nothing else around. So, you know, having three businesses in a higher density area would make sense, but not in our industrial park.
Okay.
Just a couple comments. And so I appreciate you tossing this around and kind of like trying to come up with the best plan, because it's a preponderance of evidence that's needed. That means 51% more likely that it's true, you know, 51 to 49. It doesn't have to be like
50% in a feather.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah, that's all it has to be. But we want to make sure that if things are coming to court, then we're giving the judge enough evidence that he can do a conviction. They might not come to court. Maybe a guy will say, yeah, you know, we had a bad day. There was definitely some odor out there. I'm just going to pay my fine. It's kind of like running a stop sign. You either did it or you didn't. And sometimes people, you just pay the ticket, and other times you're like, all right, that was pretty darn close to a stop. I'm going to try and say, you know, that should count for a stop. And then you'll come to court. And so it might not always come to court. It might just be, but if they do want to try to get it reduced or whatever, then it would come. And we want to just make sure that it's going to be a strong case and it's not just one person always having to do it, either whether it's one person from the city or one person from the industrial campus. When in 2023, when we were having issues out there, we received complaints from 4 separate businesses and 1 sheriff's deputy. And there was a problem out there. We got it dealt with, but it took a while. But we received complaints because there was a problem. And so I think the complaint process will work. And so what I'm hearing is we're going to eliminate the distance. And I must have been looking at the map wrong, but I was trying to measure 300 feet, like I was going from the back of the property line, even, you know, anywhere around.
Anywhere from
Their lot. But we can eliminate the distance if there's consensus.
Yeah, I took notes.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
how many people, I mean, did you want 1 complaint, 2 complaints?
I think,
I
like
mean-
you said, the 3 complaints were fine. It's
But just not from 3 different
Yeah,
locations,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so then what I have edited says 3 separate complaints from 3 separate parties reported within a 24-hour period. The complaints must identify a source by address and the length of time in which they have experienced the odor and be willing to sign an affidavit testifying to these facts.
Wow,
Does that mean everything?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so on this, returning on a rewrite, so you just need.
Unless
wanna
you
vote on it?
just, unless you
that's
just,
the only thing
if
you want.
that's sufficient, was
Okay.
there other things you wanted to
Yeah, it's something else you wanted to add.
change on there?
I like how the language you guys have in there for inspections. I just want an enforcement action. If you request entry into it and they don't want to let you have entry to inspect at the time of violation, then their business license is revoked immediately. It's just done. If you're doing something illegal in there that you don't want to have inspected, then your business license, I mean, or some sort of enforcement action. It has enforcement penalty provisions down there
Mhm.
for paying the fines, but nothing related to the inspections.
For the inspection? Just
So
pick
how do you
the
enforce the
violation.
inspection when you say, when a code enforcement says, you've had multiple complaints, we want to do an inspection of your facility to see your HVAC system, and that person says no and doesn't give them entry, what's the enforcement action?
That and enforce, let's see.
Under penalties, any
Under-
violation of the odor standard. So this chapter is the odor standard. So if they violate the inspection, that would be a violation of the odor standard, because that chapter is the title is odor standard. So,
Get a fine.
so any violation of the odor standard is subject to a fine of $500 per violation. The fine shall increase incrementally for an additional $500 per violation.
But I get that, but so every time you ask them that day, you give them a $500 fine? And then it's capped out at $2,000 and then you never get entry into the building?
Failure to pay a fine may result in revocation of business license and termination of city utilities.
So that, I know,
Yeah.
failure to pay the fine, but I
Yes.
tell, you come and you want to get into the facility where I'm violating.
Mhm.
I say no 4 times. You give me a $2,000 fine. I want to clean up my mess that's making the mess and making the smell
Okay.
outside. So I wait till the next day. I pay my fine. I still have my business license, but
Yeah.
you never got entry into the building.
Yeah.
Where's the enforcement to get you in for the inspection?
Okay, so do you want to?
Besides the money?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want it to be attached to their business license. If they don't let you in for an inspection,
So-
then some sort of enforcement action that attached to their business license.
So we
And
could
then-
put
yeah.
failure to pay a fine or allow inspection may result in revocation of business license and termination of city utilities?
Yes,
Okay,
that'd be great. That way it has some teeth to it. Otherwise, it seems voluntary.
And I thought we talked about raising the fine also, so, you know, I thought, you know, last week, I mean, the sky's the limit. We can pretty much charge whatever fine we would like, right?
Yep.
I mean, I would like to see, you know, 2,500 to 5,000, you know, I would like to see the fine be, something that is definitely going to make a dent. Something that is going to make people think, not, you know, $500, you know, to a business that's doing, you know, upwards of $1 million a year in business, $500 doesn't, there's no dent there. So I would like to see the fine be, you know, much higher so that, you know, it actually, it could actually hurt a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with the raising of the fine as well. I think you make it a point and you make it, if we're gonna spend our time on it, then it's gonna pay. And also the whole point is we're not trying to have to actually collect revenue. We're trying to just discourage the misuse or the failure to adhere to the code. That's what the objective is. So I do agree that we should definitely look at raising that substantial. And I agree with you, Jerry, make it sting. And I agree with Councilman Kilroy as well. Like, there has to be enforcement, period, the end. If you refuse, like, to me, okay, you're out. Because, I mean, now we have the precedence to set that, you know, we've been through this process before, and here's the working example of what was going on, and we have a zero tolerance policy going forward. So, I mean, I just think that that's clean, it's professional, they do that kind of stuff even in schools, for heaven's sake. So if they can enforce it in kids, we can do it in code and city and business. And then my other thing would be just to, again, coming back to leaning on the community, we're talking about being kind of worried about the affidavits and them showing up. I think if we did a little bit of community engagement or, you know, education, as you said, to some of the business owners down there, to just put our expectation that This is not to be an attack or bullying with this, but if it's uncomfortable or if it puts your safety or your employees' health and safety at risk, then this is the process, but we're gonna ask you to buy in and agree that, I mean, I think we have a business owner in the room. I'm pretty sure you can make sure that your gentleman would be represented at court if need be, right? If the city has to take that route, can we educate the business owners to have assurances that they'll allow the time off to allow their guys to show up?
Quick note, you can't approach the audience when you're making a statement unless it's during.
I just mean, okay, generalizing, thank you. Generalizing, we have people in the audience. I think that we could find a way to work with the business owners and the leaders in the industrial park that are affected by this to make sure that there's a clean educational campaign and a component to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you for the correction.
Yeah, I think you got a gist of what we're talking about
Yeah,
here.
I think
Yeah.
I have a really
Do
good
we-
idea.
Do we have a number we want to put for the fine?
I just want to chime in one little bit on that. There's gonna be times where someone's operating the facility, and I'm not trying to be, I just want it to be cleaned up down there. I'm not trying to run people off. I just want them to run their business and not have a negative impact on other people. There's gonna be times, I think that it should stay $500 for the first violation, because that's gonna get the attention of the owner. The owner may not know that someone's inappropriately managing the facility. So I don't like the idea of hitting them with a multi-$1,000 fine right off the get-go, but I like, shoot a shot across the bow, $500 fine. The next step up can be the big step up to 2,500, because now the owner's aware of it. And if there's someone poorly managing it, he's made the decision to leave them in that position. And I think that gives them an opportunity to correct. I don't necessarily agree with the really aggressive fine at the front end, but I'd say staying at 5 and then the second fine going up to 2,500.
And this is per day. So if they don't clean it up, like, they can't manage it, the next day, it's another $2,500 fine and another $2,500 fine. So it's,
Or it's
It would
worthwhile to
be,
pay
it
for
would
a
be 3,000, the
adequate
way
HVAC
it's
system.
written.
I agree with that.
continue to go up.
I agree with that $500 first fine, and then up to $2,500 on the second one. I like
Oh,
that.
So any violation of the odor standard is subject to a fine of $500 per violation. This fine shall increase incrementally for an additional $2,500 per violation. So that it would be $3,000 on day
One.
3. So day 1 would be $500. Day 2 would be $3,000.
Okay.
$3,000.
Day 3 would be 5,500.
Day 3 would
Oh.
be 5,500.
No, I wasn't thinking rolling. That's.
Okay, so,
crazy.
but we
Yeah.
do say penalties of a combined
Oh, yeah.
total are not to exceed,
That's a little.
and we can set a not to exceed. So you can set a not to exceed of
had it.
$3,000. We had $2,000.
Because it would go up incrementally 500 each day.
Oh, I see where.
So
I
we go
misread that.
500,000, 15,2, and then it would continue at 2,000 a day
Mhm.
until it was cleaned up. Is how it was originally written.
I like 500 for the first day, second day's 2,500, third day's 2,500, fourth day's 2,500,
Okay,
you know?
so it should increase by 2,000. Penalties of a total are not to exceed 2,500 per day.
I like
Okay.
that one.
Like that.
Okay,
It's got teeth.
Okay.
great.
Okay. Boy, I'd hate to get in trouble in Estacada.
I will say so there are businesses operating out there now. And there will, just to manage expectations, you will smell cannabis from time to time. People are gonna go in and out of a door, or it's not gonna be 100% gone. But it should not be continuous, strong, all the words that we've been hearing. It should be, they've opened a door and an odor came out and it wafted down the way. It should not be like what we were experiencing with that illegal operation or what we were experiencing in 2023. So I think to expect that it's 100% contained is unreasonable, but it should be not a continual slap in the face, like you said.
So there's facilities I've driven past 100 times down there that I've never smelled
Never
a
did.
whiff from. And I'm not saying that's my expectation, but I understand what you're saying, but I
They
think
can
that
do-
there's some places it could do better. That's all.
It can be
Sorry.
done though,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Mostly.
we got complaints, we got location, we got distance, we have location. But what about length of time? That's kind of what you're stepping on. Because if you're opening the door, that's a few minutes.
Yeah, it'll be
But if
gone.
it's like 15 plus,
Right, if
there
they're
like-
leaving a container outside full of garbage,
or
that,
will that be up to discretion? 15 minutes?
That's what they said. 15 minutes is how the code currently reads.
Mhm. If something happens and it doesn't dissipate in 15 minutes, that's when we'd be able to issue a citation. Okay,
Then do we need to clarify how that works? If someone calls in with a complaint, it takes code enforcement 10 minutes to get down there. Is it 15 minutes from the time code enforcement shows up or 15 minutes from the time of the complaint?
I think it's when the person makes the complaint, that's when they've noticed it, that's when they mark that time down.
well, what we would.
That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, well,
From the time of complaint, if
Mm.
code enforcement takes 20 minutes to get
20
down there and it still smells,
obviously it's been the
it's
whole
been going
time.
continuous, yeah.
If it doesn't smell anymore, then we would need other people to corroborate that.
Need
Like
three
if we can't smell it to say, yes, I do smell that, then we need that's when we need the other voices. Mhm.
What is the county's view on this whole thing? Because they've got an illegal grow that's not more than a block away from the industrial park on the west-hand side.
Mhm.
And that thing stinks all the time. I'd be afraid that smell is going to creep over there in the industrial park because it's pretty strong, especially in the evening hours. Do we know what the county's?
The county requires the filtration equipment. From what I've heard, this is what I've been told by our code enforcement. County requires the equipment for filtration. And as long as that is installed, they're done with it.
So
If
even
you-
if they're open greenhouses, like if you look at
Well,
those
that
hoop
one,
houses.
if that's illegal, they're not, I don't know why they're not doing anything
Yeah.
about it, but if there's a place that's licensed in the county, they said what we can do is we can make sure that they've got their filtration devices. And as long as they've got those installed, they're good. And we don't take complaints because they have their filtration. And they don't chase complaints like we are. We are being extremely proactive because we value the businesses out in our industrial campus. We want that to be a positive environment, a positive community. And with a heavy odor, it's not, no matter, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not. And so we're really fighting against it and fighting for our industrial campus to be a good, positive place of commerce. And the county, they're much more lax on that, so.
All right, everybody comfortable with that? All right, so what are you looking for a motion on this one?
Bring this one
Okay,
back.
yeah.
Because we're just changing it substantially enough
Yeah.
that I want to give the existing businesses notice that we're going to do it.
So we're bringing it back. We're bringing the business license one back.
Right. So
How
get the third
about,
one.
that leaves the third one.
Ordinance 2025-007, an ordinance
Yes.
amending sections 9.12.040, obstructing passageways of the Estacada Municipal Code.
Mhm.
I move to approve.
Okay, that was easy enough. I got a motion on the floor.
Second.
First and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, we are at citizen and community group comment. I have one more here. Okay, Eric Sale. This time I'm gonna have to keep you in the lights, man. That thing blinks.
Yeah, I'd rather not be here too. I got
Okay, all righty.
So I just wanted to share, as we go through this process, as we need to identify and get people to trust in the system again.
Yeah.
To trust in the online system. I reported on May 1st, the fact that the system would not take more than one complaint today. It would not take more than one, it would not, you could not repeat fields. No more than one complaint on the same day, no more than one issue ever, no more than one location ever. So you could not complain. And so I don't know how far back that's been going on. Melanie, they fixed it. But when it's not taking the information, when we don't, so I would like to ask that there be like some sort of a data and a check to get confidence in the system. So a way to say, hey, and also to follow up on that the complaint was actually acted on and followed on, and somebody else needs to actually review that data to see that it happened. So the website should give a list of complaints. There should be another column that says what the date of action and response by the code enforcement was and what the date of resolution is. And then a supervisor should check that and be able to say, These came in on the website. This was the response. This was the response to the complainant. This is how we did it. It's all the way around wrapped up.
Yeah.
So we need to build that. That's because when people don't get action, when people don't get response, when nothing happens, they quit letting you know things. So it's a complaint-driven system, but we've actually trained people not to complain. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's it on that. I don't have any more citizen group comment, or do I have any online at all? No? Okay. We are now at mayor and council reports and comments. I will start off with you, Blevins.
I'd like to start off with the LOC was great. Learned a lot, got to experience some things I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't been there. Got to spend some time with the Malala mayor, the Lafayette mayor, and learned a few things. I really like one of the things that Malala does with getting their information out. It's called the Malala Current. I want to look into that, reach out to Malala and talk to them, kind of see what they got going on. As far as my committees go, I haven't seen them yet. I haven't spoken with anyone at the fire department, but I remember at the ribbon cutting or the splash pad, they're passing around donations information. Kind of curious on where that's at. But other than that, that's all I got.
All right, John.
So this past weekend, I went to a garden club sale. I went to a library. I went to a splash pad. I went to a antique fair. I went to a Saturday market. I went to an art gallery. I went to a hardware store and got stuff for my garden. A favorite restaurant, apparently I found out they brought Eggs Benedict back. And another favorite place in town, they've got a new burger that's just great. And I didn't even leave town. I mean, that was awesome to be able to have all that stuff around town. And I particularly noticed at the splash pad, it's not even hot yet, and that place is crawling with kids. You know, they really like that kind of stuff. I think the community really likes that kind of stuff. And I know that across the way, we've got that new restaurant coming. I'm looking forward to that. I know we've got some money set aside for some waterfront stuff. And I just think, wouldn't that be awesome if we could get some kind of family-friendly thing over there too, be it like a theme type park with not rides, but little structures or whatever it is, be it, you know, timber based or railroad based, whatever it is, but you know, having something over there that people could go and just hang out. And I think it would do great. I think that we're all looking for that kind of stuff. And I think the sooner the better. You know, why can't we, rhetorical question, but why can't we make that part of the water improvement stuff that they planned for this year? Why can't we add something like that, or at least get the ball rolling so we can start doing things like that? It was just a great weekend, and I didn't leave town. It was awesome.
Good job. Right, John.
Yeah, so I want to start out, so I went with Councilman Blevins and Melanie to the LOC meeting, and it was overall, I thought it was a really good conference. It was really interesting to hear the different perspectives and different courses that were offered there. And we were able to share about overcoming the differences on how do you approach votes when it's uncomfortable, or if you disagree with your staff or your fellow councilmen or your constituents even. And we were able to share about our process through DIC and removing our emotion and doing it just solely based off using your value system and what your community's vision and value is, and adhering to that, and then sticking and making decisions based off of what you believe your community's values and identity is and what that represents. So that was pretty cool to be able to share that and then speak afterwards with some of the councilmen and councilwomen from the other communities in the rural areas. Really great time. So thank you for going to us with that, Melanie. It was a great experience getting to know you a little bit more as well, and see you in your element, networking and things like that. It was cool. So I really did appreciate that. I also went to the Saturday market. It was really cool to see people out in town. Man, it's such a thing to me. I'm reminded on this. I didn't really have a home feeling growing up, and it's what a privilege it is to be in a community where I can call it home and feel like I'm giving my kids something that I didn't, and that's one thing that's super, super important to me. And I think that that's something that resonates with all the families in this community as well. So I just want to overly share my appreciation for the people that are signing up and participating at these events and the different things that we put on through the city. I mean, it really does make a difference. It's cool to come from somewhere that you can be proud of and that you can call home. With that, I have to agree with Councilman Golza. I missed the ribbon cutting and I apologize. I had a much needed day with my wife. And, I went the day after, and I tell you, I went and my kids, they laughed and they played with just their friends from school, and all this different stuff is incredible. But I tell you, I drive by there at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I can't tell you how many cars are parked in front of that with little kids at all times a day servicing that thing. And as much as I was a little underwhelmed initially looking at it at first, I see the immediate return in value to the community. And I think that that's a win that we can stake on, and that's results that's delivered to the people. And I want more of it. Like Councilman Dolza said, it addresses a need. That thing's as busy as it is at 10 a.m. It's time to look at what else we can pump out. So give these people some things and give our community something that they can call home.
Alright, well, I'm using one of my last opportunities to promote disc golf here in Estacada. The Northwest Disc Golf Championship is being held May 29th through the June 1st, and the first 2 days will be at our Milo McIver. We were there this past weekend. They were busy getting ready for it, so it's pretty exciting. Professional disc golfers from around the world will be there with the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and it's always exciting. I can't tell you how many times I've read something or listened to a podcast or coverage where they just are in love with Estacada. I'm always so proud to be there knowing that it's in my backyard. The city should have a table at the Milo first 2 days of it, and I hope to see some of you there. There's just under 3 weeks left to apply for my open position, and I hope we get a lot of applicants. It's a very rewarding position. I just want to encourage everyone to apply. You'll learn so much about the city that we love and what's possible and sometimes not. You have until 5 p.m. on June 2nd to apply.
Thank everybody for coming out tonight. Yeah, the splash pad is amazing. I want to thank everyone that had a part in putting that together. I was on the same boat as you, thinking it's kind of on the smaller side, but it just packed out. People just love it down there. Love seeing all the little kids enjoying themselves. Quick comment about the problem with the website that came to our attention. Just want to recognize that Melanie was at the conference when I called her on that. She quickly called Delana, and within less than an hour, I think, the issue was resolved. So I really appreciate the immediate action on that. I do appreciate the comments from members of the audience that about being able to document that. I think we can respect people's privacy and not put their names on a complaint, people that want to be anonymous, but the type of code enforcement action that's reported, I think that's a great idea. If on May 7th, there's a odor complaint, doesn't need to say who the complaint is, doesn't need to say who the complaint was against, but just the fact that the type of complaints that are being, if there's a way to document that on there, and then the date of resolution without disclosing the address of who's being complained against, I think that would build confidence, and at least people can see that their complaint is being recognized. I don't know if currently, I went through the test run and I didn't see any complaint confirmation coming back to me that would be a document that some sort of triggering action that recognizes that the complaint was received. And then when it's resolved, I didn't go all the way, I just did test.
I
when was
can
doing it.
set up the form to send you we've received your complaint and here's what your complaint says, if that's what you're asking for.
Yeah, I think something would it be too difficult to get something on the website that just tracks when a complaint's, like a timestamp of complaints made and the type of, like if you have the type of complaints available and you pick a drop down and you pick the section that it pertains to, seems like it just autofill with the time of the complaint and the type of complaint?
I think that that would require, it wouldn't be something we can automate with our current website. It would something that would require manual time from staff. And that would be very time intensive, I think, for right now. But I can set up a form that sends you back what you said, so you know exactly what you can, that way you have confirmation that you submitted a complaint and here's what the complaint said.
What's the process for notifying the complaint and once the action's resolved? Or what the resolution of the complaint was?
We don't always notify the person. It depends on what the situation is. A complaint comes in, hopefully the person making the complaint sees the change, if there needs to be a change. And I've learned to say, we'll look into that, because sometimes the perception of what's getting reported is different. It's a different kind of perception. So sometimes we're able to say, yes, we'll look into that. Other times it's just, they'll see the change because it gets taken care of. Sometimes there's a response because they'll say, did you get my message or something? And so, but we don't let them, we don't follow up and explain that we took these steps and this, yeah.
And I'll kill it.
Okay.
Wrong time, but I'll bring it, I'd like to
Okay.
have more discussion about
Okay.
that at the next meeting, but yeah, appreciate everyone's participation tonight and thanks for coming out.
Yeah, Jerry.
Thank you, staff, for another well-managed meeting as far as our agenda went. I want to thank everybody that came out. And again, thanks everybody for their participation tonight. There was a lot of good discussion. And I think we still have some work ahead of us on a couple of the issues, but I think we did good tonight. So thank you.
Okay.
Oh, and also like to say, finally, an issue that has been around since my first day as a counselor is finally done. The splash pad is complete and it's exciting. I know Sean and Melanie and Sadie have been dealing with it longer than I have, but that's been an issue since day one when I started on council. So I'm just glad that is done and out of the way.
Okay. I got a couple things here. These are more praise moments, but I thought they're worthy of a mention. I was driving down on Lakeshore. I do it about 3 times a week. And a citizen came out and stopped me. And they said, I got to tell you something. I've never had this happen. And I think it's really important that you know. So I was like, okay, well, I thought it was going to be something bad, but it was not. It was about our public works department. This person and his wife had an anniversary. They're elderly. They're probably in their 70s or 80s. And the public works guy know these people. They mow around their house all the time and try to keep everything up for them. And they go out of their way to help these people. But that is not my point. My point is that they remembered this person and his wife's anniversary, brought a card and a gift card to them for a dinner. And they were in shock. The guy had tears in his eyes. Now, that speaks to our public works department as exceptional in my book. And the idea that they went out of their way on their own time to do this for these people, I give them kudos for that. I give them exceptional marks to go out of their way to do that. And these people were, I don't think they've ever had anything like this. So that said, I want to definitely give them high marks on that. And to the city staff for the splash pad, I know it's been a hard road on that splash pad. But you guys opening it up and making the effort to keep it open after it was turned on for the special day and watching those kids have fun until all hours of the night, lines out the backside of it for the ice cream truck was to me the ultimate on what it is we're trying to accomplish here in Estacada. And like they all said, I want to see more of this. It's like addictive to see these families enjoying something wholesome in our city that we accomplished. That's what this is all about. That's what I live for. So kudos on you guys for making it happen. You did an exceptional job, and going forward, I think you're going to come up with even better stuff. So thank you for that. And I want to thank the audience for sitting through this. I know some of it seems tedious on occasion with ordinances and everything and going back and forth, but it's necessary. And we're just happy that you all know what's happening and you take the time out of your day to sit here and go through it with us. So we appreciate you. And until next week, this meeting is adjourned.